Hello, my people. Good day to you, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whatever time zone you're listening to this, thank you for tuning in every single day to listen to me on Daily Mind Shifts. My name is Michael Ojuola from Mindset Transformation Africa, and on today's episode, I want to talk about conflicts. Let me anchor today's episode on this statement. It is never the conflict, but what is underneath the conflict that matters. Look past the conflict into what is really going on today. It is never the conflict, but what is underneath the conflict that matters. Look past the conflict into what is really going on today. So that is what I want us to talk about. I know it affects every one of us, often in ways we don't even realize. Conflict affects every one of us. Yes, that is uncomfortable. It's awkward. It's tension-filled. Most of us either run from it or we rage into it. But today, I want you to see it differently. Today is about how to, for you to know that it's never the conflict, but what is underneath it that matters. So let us start here. Most of us treat conflict like the enemy. As soon as tension shows up, we start assigning blames, all right? We get defensive. Believe me, I know. We build walls. We get louder or we get quieter. We assume the worst. We protect ourselves, not just from the argument, but even from the vulnerability that is underneath it. But what if I told you that the conflict is not the real issue? That is what I've been learning over time now. That is what I'm learning now. That the conflict is not the real issue. The real issue is what is under the conflict. The unsaid words, the unhealed wounds, the unmet needs, the unacknowledged expectations. See, conflict is like smoke. It is irritating, sure. It makes it hard to see clearly, yeah? But smoke always points to fire. When there is smoke, there is fire. And the fire always starts from something small, something deep down that has been heating up for a while. That is why we must train ourselves, especially in moments of tension, to stop fighting the smoke. The smoke is the conflict. To stop fighting the smoke and start searching for the spark. Start searching for that fire. See, emotions are data points. They are messengers. They are not the enemy. That is something I wish someone had told me early in my life, that emotions are not the problems. They are pointers. Anger isn't just about rage. It is a protest. It says something like, I care about, it says something around, something I care about feels threatened right now. Sadness is saying something valuable was lost. Jealousy says there is something I deeply want, but I don't believe I can have it. Frustration says I feel powerless. See, the thing is, most of us don't pause long enough to translate the emotion underneath the explosion. We argue about what is, or who is right, rather. We argue about who is right, but we never get to what is real. So, a disagreement about the dishes becomes a deeper cry for respect. A tense conversation about schedules is actually a plea for feeling seen. An argument about money might be the tip of a bigger iceberg about fear, insecurity, or even identity. Can you see where I'm going with this? The conflict is the surface, but the truth, that is what lives underneath. See, every conflict has a story. And that is the thing that I believe we forget in the heat of the moment. Every person you are in conflict with is carrying a story you cannot see. That harsh tone might be anxiety speaking. That cold shoulder might be childhood wounds playing defense. That sarcasm might be self-protection dressed in humor. See, everyone is acting from a script they did not fully write. Experiences, trauma, upbringing, belief system, emotional trigger, fears. You don't have to excuse it, all right? But you must understand it if you want growth over gridlock, all right? If you want progress over conflict. Let me say that again. You don't have to excuse the behavior, all right? But if you want to transform the relationship, you've got to understand the belief under it. All right, you have to understand the belief beneath the behavior. That is how you move from conflict to connection. That is how you move from reaction to resolution. See, conflict is not a problem. Avoiding the root of conflict is the main problem. See, there is a famous quote that says, we cannot heal what we want to reveal. We can't heal what we want to reveal. And that applies to conflict too. When you just keep patching things up at the surface without addressing the root, you are not building peace. You are building pressure. And eventually that pressure will burst. Because unresolved conflict doesn't disappear. It just disguises itself. It disguises itself as sarcasm, avoidance, resentment, passive aggression, withdrawal. See, we don't need more people skilled in debating. We need more people skilled in decoding, in understanding. See, what is really going on here? You need to learn how to ask those questions whenever any conflict arises. Is it about respect? Is it about not feeling heard? Is it about fear of abandonment? Is it about a deeper wound from years ago? You need to learn how to ask what is really going on. When you start asking those questions, the conversation begins to shift. It begins to shift from how I felt to what is really, really going on here. You stop attacking the person and you start addressing the problem. You start addressing the pain. And when pain gets addressed, people feel safe. And when people feel safe, they open up to you. See, you need to learn how to use the power of pause. So, what do you do in the middle of a heated argument? That is where pausing comes into play. You pause. That may sound simple, but it is effective. It is powerful. The pause is your weapon. It is your protection. It is the door that lets wisdom in before war takes over. When you feel the urge to react, pause and ask yourself, what am I really feeling right now? What might they really be feeling? What might they really be feeling also? Is this reaction about a present moment or an unhealed moment from the past? What is really at stake here? What is really going on here? The pause is where your power lives. The person who can pause can lead the room, not by dominance, not by manipulation, but by discernment. And that is what this generation, I believe, is starving for. Not more noise, but more people who can navigate beneath the noise. You need to learn how to practice the art of seeing underneath. Let's get a little bit practical, all right? If you want to live this mindset out every single day, here's your move. Practice seeing underneath. The next time someone frustrates you, pause and ask, what might they be needing right now? What might I be needing that I'm not expressing right now? What is the deeper message under this mess? See, this doesn't mean you excuse harmful behavior, like I said before. It doesn't mean you take abuse. It doesn't mean you take mistreatment, all right? Let me be very clear. Boundaries are holy and they are necessary. You must set them and enforce them. But what it does mean is that instead of living in emotional reaction, you start living in emotional intelligence. You speak to the core of the person, not just their conduct, but their soul, their person. And that is where transformation happens in you and in them. Both of you will now leave the conflict apart and focus on the relationship. See, looking back is important for you to be able to look forward. That's what I'm inviting you to reflect on today. Think about a conflict that either hurt you, confused you, or maybe is still unresolved. And now ask yourself, what was underneath the surface? What was underneath the conflict? What was unspoken? What was misunderstood? What was feared? Maybe the fight wasn't about betrayal. It was about someone feeling invisible. Maybe it wasn't about disrespect. It's about a fear of not being loved back. Maybe it wasn't even about the argument, but about the timing, the stress, the unhealed past colliding with a triggered present. When you start seeing life this way, the conflicts don't disappear, right? But you stop letting them dominate your peace. You stop being controlled by people's reactions. You start becoming curious instead of combative. And that curiosity, that is the beginning of wisdom. So today's mind shift is not about avoiding conflict. It's about interpreting it. Look beneath the surface. When someone is short with you, ask, What are they holding that they have not said? When a team member receives your leadership, ask what fear might be causing this resistance. And when your team or when your partner shuts down